Hello and welcome. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, or viva vis, and you are listening to Outcast. So today's episode is going to be about coming out and my experience with it. Because honestly, my experience and my relationship with coming out is really weird. So I knew that I was asexual since I was like 13 or 14, and I didn't really tell anyone until I met my partner when I was 18. Because obviously, back then I was sex repulsed, so I kind of had to tell him. And it went fine. But I wasn't really openly asexual at all. After I also came out as non-binary. My coming out as trans non-binary was the biggest coming out of them all because it affected me the most. So I realised I was genderqueer in April 2017. So after I met my partner. And I came out for the first time to someone, officially kinda, in October 2017. But before, I already put like non-binary hashtags on my Instagram posts and stuff. I never really hid it, and what I also did is like I put my pronouns in my bio everywhere, and I even changed my Facebook name to Jay in hopes that people would just start using it, but they didn't. I wasn't hiding it, but I wasn't explicitly telling anyone about my identity either. So it was this weird thing, like, I don't know. But then my sister asked about it and I told her. I didn't tell her about the name change though. And at one point I drew a simplified gender spectrum for my parents and asked them where they fall on it, and then showed where I fall on it, and they were like, oh, okay. Like, they're always really passive about this kind of stuff. They don't say anything, which kind of fucks with my head, to be honest. And then, on that occasion, I also drew pretty much a spectrum from, like, asexuality to allosexuality, and kind of came out to them as asexual like that, but they didn't really care. I mean, it wasn't like they were, like, anti-queer or anything, but they were just really passive, and they were like, oh, yeah, you do you, but not necessarily a good way, like just in a very passive way. And I officially came out in October. I told my partner first. I have told him kind of before as well, but that was when I told him like I want to go by this name now, and I'm definitely not a woman, and my pronouns are they, them now and stuff. I came out to my family when I was in hospital for 2 days. I came out to them on the 3rd of October, I believe. We had a WhatsApp group with my extended family from my mum's side, like aunts, uncles, cousins and stuff. I sent a message basically saying, oh, hello, I'm non-binary and this is my name and all that stuff and this is what this means and stuff. Honestly, I was way too scared to do it when I wasn't in the hospital. Like, I needed that distance. But yeah, again, my parents especially were like really passive about it and didn't come out to the rest of the world until March 2018. I started by going to my doctors and telling them, like asking them if they could have me under my new name. It wasn't legally changed it, but yeah. And if they could have me under like unknown gender or something. And also to not use an honorific or a title. Because they do that anyway with like minors, and I was only 18, so I asked them to just do it that way again. They call me by my first and last name, and that went fine. And then the very big one was coming out at my school, because I couldn't live like that anymore, that my family used my new name and stuff, or at least they tried. But at school they still used my old name. My partner and I used to be long distance, and when I met with him one time we were in the hotel, and then I took the chance to come out. Also in a WhatsApp group. We had a WhatsApp group with my entire grade. It was like about 90 people. And I sent a fucking message in there saying, oh, by the way, I'm non-binary, I go by this name now. This is what this means, and blah blah blah. And I was so terrified because I knew there were transmisic people in my grade because they have said stuff before. Not specifically to me, but just about trans and non-binary people. But the reactions weren't too bad. I mean, they weren't really bad at all. Like, one guy asked, like, oh, how do you come to this conclusion? And I'm just like, it's none of his business. But some girls sent me private messages and said, like, oh, you're so brave for coming out and stuff. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not trying to be inspirational, I'm just trying to make surviving a bit easier. But yeah, and before I came out to my fellow students, I sent like a collective email to all my teachers, and some of them also replied privately, and some of them just didn't say anything until I went back to school, because this was during like Easter holidays, because again I needed that distance. I didn't want to go to school the next day and have those reactions. Yeah, so that was a big one. But obviously coming out never really stops. And then with my bi/pan orientation, I have told my mum casually sometime in the car, like, oh, you know, like, I could be with like anyone of any gender, but I don't even know why I told her, because by then I was already with my partner, but she didn't know about him. Yeah, and that was like another thing of me just being queer without ever coming out. Like, I would make comments about women and stuff, like hot women at school a lot. I mean, I'm pretty sure people just knew, but yeah. Yeah, and at some point I also just told my partner, and obviously he's fine with it. Like, I don't know, he doesn't care because he knows I love him. I mean, I'm monogamous, so I'm not really interested in doing anything else. And with my aromanticism, it's, I don't know, like, it's just a label change. Like, it doesn't really change anything about my relationship. Like, it was never particularly romantic. I just thought I had to define it that way and define my attraction to my partner that way. Most of the time I didn't really bother telling anyone. Like, I'm just, again, kind of openly aromantic on the internet. Yeah, I didn't really tell my family or anything because I know there would be like weird questions like, can you be romantic and be in a relationship, and all that stigma. And similar to with asexuality as well, like I would feel like there would be like very invasive questions if I told people, like my family or at school. And honestly kind of the same with like me now using the labels Vincian and lesbian as well. It's like, it's just a label change, like my actual orientation isn't changed, like who I'm attracted to. I just put different labels on it because they feel empowering. I think one of the reasons that I don't really hide who I am is because I'm autistic. Because like, I can't pretend to be someone that I'm not. Like, I have to be me once I realise who I am. The minute I realised I was non-binary, I never actively hid it like some other people might do. And another thing that's kind of weird about my coming out is I came out so fast. Like, I know trans people who take years until they come out, and I pretty much unofficially came out like 2 months later maybe, or like 3 months later, and officially 6 months later. But yeah, that's all I can say on my coming out experience. Now it's time for the pronoun of the week. This week's pronoun set is they, them. Examples. They are non-binary. Their name is Jay. I like them a lot. Jay doesn't like themselves. That jacket is theirs. If you want to suggest a pronoun set, you can email me or DM me on Twitter and Instagram. You can support me on my Patreon. The link is patreon.com/out_castpod. My Twitter and Instagram are also out_castpod. Email address is gndrqr98@gmail.com. You can also send in a voice message if you want to be featured on the podcast. The link for that will be in the description, as will all the other channels. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself.